Hi, welcome to the Libero Network. My name is Robin, and today we're going to be talking about your life in eating disorder recovery from this to this. So, going along with this month's theme of transitions, I wanted to talk about going from a non-parent status to a parent status when you're in recovery from an eating disorder. So I know for me, when I was pregnant, there was a lot of attention spent on my body image, how I was going to feel about gaining weight. And although that's a really good thing to focus on when you are pregnant and going through all those changes of your body, I wasn't really prepared for when my little baby came out, and I wasn't prepared for the craziness that ensued thereafter. So I think this is a really important topic to talk about because not many people discuss the feelings and the anxiety and the craziness and everything that goes along with being a new parent, but how that also impacts your recovery. So no matter where you are in your recovery, I personally don't think you ever really can prepare yourself for the unpredictability factor that a child brings into your life. And if you weren't aware of it, that most eating disorders kind of tend to flare up or the trigger gets pulled when there's a huge life change. Originally, my eating disorder started when I was in my senior year of high school and I was having anxiety about going into college. And having a child is a huge life change that every little aspect of your life is completely affected. I mean, you can't even go to the bathroom most of the time by yourself. So it's huge. It's a huge change. So if you do happen to struggle after your child is born, or you struggle during your pregnancy itself, just know this is a huge life change. Your body and your life is completely going to be different for the rest of your life. And at times like that, we tend to revert back to old behaviors and old habits that served us in the past. So if you do find yourself struggling and doing behaviors that are in your eating disorder, you really need to understand that your behaviors are not selfish. They're nothing to be ashamed about. And the biggest thing is to reach out for help, be that through your recovery team or a friend. And even if you happen to not be in touch with your recovery team since the birth of your child, it might be a good idea to call them up and schedule an appointment. I know before the birth of my son, I was seeing my therapist just once a month just to keep myself on track and check in and make sure everything was okay. After my son was born, it went back to weekly sessions, just because and I'm still going weekly because I want to make sure I stay on top of my recovery. I did let myself slip when my son was born, so I needed to get back on top of my recovery and make that a priority. So when your child is here, make sure your recovery is still a big priority in your life. So the next piece of advice I have for you people going through this wonderful transition is to make sure you spend time alone. You make time for you. This can be anything. I made my me time my yoga class once a week. That was my me time. That was my time to take care of myself and to rejuvenate myself and to take care of me and put my self-care first and foremost. It might not happen every day, but my biggest piece of advice to you is to find something once a week that you can do that is self-care for you, alone, without your child, without your spouse, just by yourself. So far I've kind of made having a child seem kind of nuts and not so great. And if I have, I apologize. But having a child really it's pretty incredible. And there's something that I was never really able to understand and even practice before I had a child. But after I had my son, the phrase stay present was so incredibly powerful, and I was able to actually practice that for the first time after having my son. If you think about it, if you're not present and you're in your eating disorder thoughts when you are outside with your toddler and you're obsessing about food or your weight in your head, and all of a sudden your child starts to wander off into the street, you're not staying present and something terrible could really happen. I don't want to scare you or freak you out, but that's why it's so important to stay present. And that's the only reason I was really able to start practicing staying present. So going along with staying mindful and present with your child, having children can really raise your anxiety. It can make a simple car ride look like this. Not the most relaxing thing on the planet, right? So having children can raise your anxiety level. It was huge on my anxiety when my son was first born. Having him cry at the drop of a hat, having to go in the market, and then having to leave immediately because he had a meltdown for one reason or another. And it is very anxiety provoking because there is a level of unpredictability that is indescribable. So as much as children can increase anxiety and can make your world completely unpredictable, there is a huge upside to having children, is that they can be a huge motivating factor in your recovery. I know for me, when I got pregnant, I really was like, I cannot go back into my eating disorder. There's no way. And when I did have my son after he was born, I did relapse for a few months and was really struggling. But the thought that I wasn't going to be present with my son and that my behavior could affect his life and could affect how he was brought up was a huge motivating factor for me to get help and get myself back on track. So although they can really test your recovery, they're a huge motivating factor to stay in your recovery and stay healthy. So just to recap the key points I want you to take away from this video about transitioning into parenthood when you're in recovery from an eating disorder are: number one, make sure that if you're struggling, you reach out for help and you don't isolate. You need to understand that your behaviors are not childish, they're not selfish, and they're not to be ashamed of. That you need to reach out for help and take care of yourself before you can take care of your child. So the second key point I want you to take away is that your me time is sacred. That you find a day once a week to take care of you. It doesn't have to be for the full day. It's just you find something that you can do once a week that is just for you. So the third thing I want you to take away is to use your child to help you stay present and help you stay mindful. Like I said, for me, it was a lot easier after I had a child to understand the concept of staying mindful and present because of this huge motivating factor. So if you feel yourself having eating disorder thoughts or negative thoughts creeping in, see if you can use your child to help you stay present and help you stay mindful of your surroundings and experience life in its present moment. So the last thing I want you to take away from this video is that even though as unpredictable and crazy as a child can be, crazy, yes, allow your child to help motivate you and inspire you to stay in your recovery. He can be a handful sometimes, can't you? Sometimes. But he is my number one reason to stay healthy and stay in my recovery, and he's kind of cute too. So thanks, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.